If you've ever seen an old building in your neighborhood and thought, I wonder what's in there, then I've got the perfect event for you to put on your calendar. Open House Chicago from the Chicago Architecture Center is back October 18th and 19th. It's a free citywide festival where you get behind the scenes access to more than 200 of Chicago's most beautiful, historic, and interesting buildings across 25 neighborhoods. Seriously, there's no tickets. You just pull up and explore the buildings. Plan your weekend now at openhousechicago.org. Steppenwolf Theater kicks off its 50th season with the Chicago premiere of Mr. Wolf. Written and directed by ensemble members, the Chicago Tribune gave it 4 stars and called it explosively emotional. And I watched the trailer, y'all, and that seems like a perfect description. It follows the story of Teresa, a 15-year-old who has been missing for over a decade. Now a miraculous reunion has left her with a family she no longer understands nor recognizes. Get tickets now at steppenwolf.org.
Today on CityCast Chicago, we're once again asking if Trump will send troops to the city, what's the future of downtown, and sports stadiums / entertainment districts. What are they good for? It's Friday, October 3rd. I'm Simone Alicea in for Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I'm here with Axios Chicago's Justin Kaufman. Justin, welcome back.
Simone, good to talk to you.
Thanks. I love being here. I've been on the air so much the past 2 weeks, and
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks. I like doing this.
yeah, it's good. And we also have Block Club Chicago's Melody Mercado. Melody, welcome back to you as well.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me.
Before we jump into the biggest news stories of the week, I want to remind our listeners, it is the last day of our fall membership campaign. We are so close. We are almost there. But we have some goals we need to reach. And to reach those goals, I just need 17 people to sign up today at membership.citycast.fm. 17 people before the end of this episode. And we can reach our goals to keep CityCast Chicago sustainable, keep this thing going, keep this podcast and newsletter coming out every day. Look, I think our listeners at this point know the reasons to support, right? We support local journalism. You're supporting these great conversations with amazing people. But let's talk about the benefits that you get as a member. Obviously, you get to feel good about those things. You get to feel good about supporting local and, making sure that local journalism is being sustained. But there are also like material perks and benefits that you get. Ad-free listening. I'm a member of a few podcasts. This is my biggest reason for becoming that. I love listening to the show uninterrupted, the people that I like uninterrupted. Access to members-only events, neighbors-only events. This is huge. This is a chance to meet us in real life, which I hope is a fun prospect for our listeners. But also you guys can meet each other, meet your fellow neighbors, meet this community of Chicagoans who have committed, just who are so interested in the city, who are, they're so connected to this city. And I love being able to see when neighbors meet each other and then go on to have friendships or go on to go do other events together. I think that's great. We have our next event is going to be at Open House Chicago. We're going to be at the Ramova Theater. But if you want the details, the specific details, you got to sign up at membership.citycast.fm. The last couple perks I'll talk about, the events preview you get every Monday, previewing the best events happening in Chicago that week. Our newsletter editor, Emmy Mack, works really hard on those. And I think it's just so convenient to have that straight in your inbox every single Monday. And then, of course, the last thing, because you can only get it now, which is the Neighbors Make Chicago tote. You have to sign up before Monday's episode comes out. Otherwise, you will not get the tote. It will be gone forever. And that is your symbol to say all those things I mentioned. That's what you wear to represent all those great things, is that Neighbors Make Chicago tote. So again, you can sign up now at membership.citycast.fm. citycast.fm. I want to close out by sharing a comment we got from someone who signed up during this fall membership campaign, Michael KP, who said, I rely on CityCast for in-depth analysis of local and statewide current events. Sometimes I feel like we are alone in watching these horrors unfold on our phones. Hearing Jacoby and Simone talk about these events with a clear vision is grounding and refreshing. The city can be so siloed into different regions and neighborhoods, but these attacks on our neighbors is an issue that faces us all. The in-depth coverage of these abductions by ICE has moved me to financially support a Chicago institution that I've been listening to since 2020. And Michael specifically says that these Friday Roundup episodes where we invite you guys onto the show are really important to him. So I wanted you guys to hear that because I think you guys are obviously, guests like you are a big part of this too. Let's get to the news of the day. I think top of mind for everyone right now has been the sort of twofold operation happening right now. Obviously, we have immigration enforcement, Operation Midway Blitz, which we saw ramp up over the weekend into this week. And then we also have sort of back on this table, this renewed threat of sending military troops into Chicago. Justin, I want to start with you because you covered that speech to generals that President Donald Trump made where those renewed threats came from. Break this down. Are troops coming to Chicago?
I think for Chicagoans, the issue is troops are already here. And we saw this at the beginning of the week where the Border Patrol, I mean, that's how crazy this week has been. I think it was Sunday that the Border Patrol did the march up and down River North and Michigan Avenue. And maybe right before that, we're on the boats on the Chicago River. A lot of Chicagoans met that with mockery and absurdity that they were doing photo shoots and things like that. But that to a lot of Chicagoans, that is the military. You have large, you have uniformed troops that are armed walking down Clark Street. And so this argument about whether or not the federal troops or the military are coming, I think, is lost a little bit on the fact that they are here and they're making their presence felt, regardless of what the name of the uniformed, regimen is. But when you think it couldn't get ratcheted up anymore, Trump essentially goes after the enemy within,
quote unquote,
which in his speech, quote unquote, he's talking about we have to war within and we want to be able to use the city as training grounds for the army. This is where it gets a little crazy for Chicagoans, especially for their leaders, because they're really having a hard time responding to it because it is pretty, as Governor Pritzker, straight quote, inane. But are you talking about, when you talk about the enemy from within, are you talking about undocumented immigrants? Are you talking about fighting crime? Are you talking about this radical left protest movement that they believe is taking over the city and in Broadview? Or are they talking about their political enemies? If you put that all together, it is what they say, that there is the enemy from within is not just one of those, it's all of those, and really comes down to the city of Chicago. And that's where politicians are having a real hard time with this, because if you really want to interpret this, the president of the United States just called out the third largest city as an enemy of the people. And that is where people start to feel like if that's the idea, the preface of getting federal troops to drop out of Black Hawk helicopters here, we're in for it. But I hope that it's rhetoric. We've been saying this forever, but again, gradually it's happening. We were talking back in August or July about troops walking down Michigan Avenue. They just did. So regardless if you want to say it's, we're waiting on it and it's legal, it's not legal, we're going to sue, it's happening as people are eating dinner at Bub City.
Justin, one of the reasons I brought you on this week is because the last time we spoke was at the beginning of September. And it was literally about this exact topic. It was sort of when it was at the very much the height of, we thought that the National Guard was going to be sent in specifically. You also wrote about, speaking of local officials, you wrote a piece sort of about like, what can they do to actually stop patrols, right? Obviously, we've heard lots of strong rhetoric from Pritzker in particular, and lots of encouragement even of Chicagoans to document, to film on their phones what's going on. But like, that's great and all, but what about the people who actually have some power here?
I talked to law professors about this, and the only power that they really have to stop a federal force from coming in the city is just enforcing laws. And so if ICE agents or the Border Patrol are doing things that are illegal, they can be cited, arrested, stopped, whatever you might, because they're breaking the local laws. In California, one professor at Northwestern, he pointed to, in California, that's what they did after the raids that they had there, was they put a law in the books that said you can't be masked. as a federal agent. That's going through the courts, but that's something that Chicago could do. That's something Illinois could do. They could also enforce some of these laws. You're seeing in Broadview, even the police force in Broadview saying that the ICE agents are being investigated for breaking the law. So it really comes down to semantics. It comes down to the courts, like it has with everything with the Trump administration. You're seeing some of the things we pulled our hair out over in January about DOJ cuts and federal funding. That has winded through the courts and come back against Trump. And so you get to this point where you're like, it might not be this sort of immediate thing that people desperately need when they feel like they're being attacked, but there is some recourse with the law. The question, though, everybody knows this and is probably rolling their eyes listening to this, is will the Trump administration follow any decision that's made by a court to uphold or defend the law?
Well, not just that, but also thinking about our Supreme Court and sort of the way that that court has empowered and emboldened this administration by, issuing decisions that I think the maybe the most prime example is the one about racial profiling by immigration agents in LA, right? Essentially sort of writing that off without any detailed explanation. Melody, were you going to jump in here?
The big question is, does the Trump administration care about the laws that are in the books? I think some people would argue no, based on president's past actions, both in his personal life and as president of the United States. But I think, using Border Patrol agents is the workaround to having federal troops in Chicago, right? The Trump administration wants the visuals of Border Patrol agents dressed in to the nines in tactical gear with weapons floating down the Chicago River. And they're getting that visual through Border Patrol. They might not have the National Guard here, but I feel like that is their official workaround. But we do know that DHS sent a memo to the Department of War officially requesting 100 National Guard troops to Illinois. Will we get that? We don't know. But it will be interesting to see what escalation could look like, because once again, we already have federal troops here. We just don't have the military, essentially. But it's getting down to the wire.
A question that I had this morning as I was preparing for this conversation is I was like, well, what does the shutdown mean? Right? If we have a government shutdown and it has been said that could affect federal law enforcement, does that then mean potentially these troops could go away? Melody, I don't know. What do you think?
So I was actually picking some brains about this. Federal law enforcement officers are considered essential workers, so they will still work and they will still go about doing what they've been doing. They just won't be getting paid. But when the administration comes back online, when the government reopens, they'll just get back pay. So I don't think that this is going to affect their movements much in Chicago. Again, there are other elements within DHS and Border Patrol personnel that are not considered essential that won't be working during this time, but agents specifically will be working.
Well, and I saw too, Attorney General Pam Bondi said vis-a-vis Memphis and National Guard troops there, something to the effect of like, this won't shut us down, right? This does not shut down the effort.
The federal government have pots of money everywhere that they can dig into for essential missions like this. So I really don't think the government shutdown is going to affect DHS, Border Patrol, National Guard very much.
No, just the people who are working jobs for federal offices here in Chicago. So that's...
Or relying on the federal government for assistance.
For assistance, sure, yeah. Well, Melody, I do also want to talk about sort of how this is playing out on the ground in the city. And you wrote about a man who was accused of assaulting a federal officer in Broadview. He was arrested, charged, but has been released on bond, I believe. What happened there and kind of what makes this case unique?
As we've seen, protests at Broadview, which is being used by the federal government as like an ICE detainment center, has been seeing a lot of protests throughout these last couple of weeks, especially over the weekends. There's been large activations there, and we've seen these protests escalate because Border Patrol and ICE agents just essentially don't care that the protesters are there. And so they are throwing tear gas, pepper bullets, rubber bullets. I know journalists and friends that are covering this that have been shot by rubber bullets. This came to a headwind over the weekend where 11 people were arrested at a at one of the protests at Broadview, and 5 of those protesters are facing federal charges related to protesting at that facility. They range from, assaulting federal officers, resisting arrests, so on, so on. So we're starting to see some of these individuals appear in court. This specific one that I covered, his name is Paul Ivory. He's 26 years old. He's an Oak Park man with an intellectual disability who showed up at this protest because he was upset that ICE and federal officers were, in his words, disrespecting Broadview police. And so he wanted to show up at this protest in support of his community. He was arrested. There's a video on social media that shows that several officers surrounding him, throwing him to the ground, arresting him. And then the federal charges were announced in this, saying that he threatened that he was going to kill federal officers and that he was resisting arrest and that he pulled a helmet down of one officer during the scuffle. And so the appearance in court that I covered was whether or not the federal government, the court system, was going to detain him in prison.
Prosecutors initially wanted him to be detained in jail pending trial, right? And
Yes.
then sort of backed off and were like, oh, okay, maybe house arrest, right?
Right. They backed off after learning about the intellectual disability. But they said that they wanted to confine him to his home. They called it home incarceration. Basically, he wouldn't be able to leave to do anything without a judge's permission. And they also wanted to assign him like a third-party custodian, which would have been his neighbor. But the judge argued that this was not needed in this case, that Paul Ivory was not a danger to the community, and that he had no criminal record. And that one thing that really stood out to me is that the mayor of Oak Park wrote a letter in support of Paul Ivory, basically calling him an outstanding citizen. Everybody in the community knows him. He's a hard worker, like a glowing letter. And the judge took that into consideration, and he decided that Paul Ivory is not going to be detained. He has some pretrial monitoring that he's going to do and has some parameters that he needs to follow, but it's definitely not what the U.S. Attorney's Office was going for, which was basically jail at home.
The visuals from these demonstrations, these protests, also just from this Sunday when immigration agents were marching in Chicago. I mean, it has been, it really reminds me of like when I'm looking at pictures from, say, the 1968 Democratic National Convention, right? Where you see protesters in Broadview in particular, I think, right? So many of the protesters are in many ways simply gathering. They just simply are existing. And you kind of see these agents up on roofs and shooting down these rubber bullets into the crowd, more or less indiscriminately, as far as I can tell. The raid of that South Shore building, right? The reporting about the man who was in a chokehold on the west side by federal agents. Again, unclear what kind of arrest even was happening there, right? We are seeing a level of brutality, and again, I think it's indiscriminate brutality.
Well, I think one of the issues you're seeing, and you see it a lot in the Trump administration, where they will have a very hardline ideological approach to something, let's say immigration, let's say whatever the topic might be. It's usually that way. But in execution, it kind of falls apart. And it's happened over in the first term,
Mm-hmm.
and you're seeing it again here, where ICE, even though they have all the money in the world, they're in minivans, their uniforms are strange, they can't catch the kid on the bike.
On the bike.
Yesterday they raided the Bronzeville migrant shelter that was there. That looked like, the video from that was completely chaotic. You're seeing them completely, allegedly, reportedly, overusing their hand when it comes to violence outside in Broadview. The Broadview Police Department says it themselves. So it's like these kind of things. And again, it's like, where is the line? And in Broadview, you're seeing they're going to investigate the agents there. And that's really what's at the core here is, what is Chicago's recourse? What can they do? And that might be it, that if they keep executing this way, the South Shore raid is a great example. It's fine, you're going to raid and say that they're gang members in there and you're trying to get them out, but the way they did that was very violent.
The report of the the windows broken, kind of up and down.
And then the eyewitness accounts after the fact about how the people were treated. One eyewitness there who was involved at 75th and South Shore, she said on the news it was they rounded up all black people here and all immigrants over here, and it's just the kind of thing again that plays at the moral center of like, wait a second, there's a lot of missing humanity here, and that will be something that probably at the end of the day will be the crux of how the government here and the government in DC kind of clash.
Well, and I think this is why journalism, particularly in this moment, is so important, because we have an administration and federal departments like DHS that just lie when they give out media statements. For example, coverage coming out of Broadview. First, a lot of departments won't respond to media requests and they take a while. But when they do, a lot of it is not accurate and not correct. And so, some things that I feel like why journalism is so important is because we're there covering those things. And while, yes, we include the statements, we also have to point out that, they said that no member of the media was attacked at Broadview, but we were there and our photographer was shot by rubber bullets and the CBS reporter was attacked while she was in her car. Like, this is just a crazy moment in history where media really is stepping up to the moment to try to fact check a lot of the stuff that we're getting. And, maybe we'll see local officials like use this to help form their case with how they will defend Chicago and Illinois throughout this whole thing.
We're going to link to some resources to how if you are out and you are documenting stuff, there are journalists who are collecting, that raw video, that raw data. And I know they have put out some links to, so basically we can all stay informed. And so we'll include that in our show notes as well.
Fall is in full swing, which means fall theater season is back and cracking across the city. And I got another pick for you to look out for. Don't wait to secure your tickets to Timeline Theater Company's world premiere of Hundreds and Hundreds of Stars. Motherhood, marijuana, and the multiverse collide in this story set in Chicago, exploring family, immigration, and identity. The play follows Clara, who's applying for U.S. citizenship ahead of a trip to Paris with her tween daughter, but Clara's application is unexpectedly flagged, threatening the only home she's ever known. We got a quote from the playwright and star Sandra Delgado, who says, "This is a very personal family tale, not unlike those playing out more and more every single day in Chicago and around the country." Starting October 8th, this Timeline production is being hosted in the immaculate Looking Glass Theater space in the historic Water Tower Waterworks at Pearson in Michigan. Visit timelinetheater.com for more info and to get your tickets today. All right, now October is here, the leaves are falling, and that chilly air gonna start creeping back real soon. And with spooky season upon us, the last thing we need is some old creaky windows running up the energy bills, letting all the heat out, making those weird whistling noises that sound like an old haunted family is calling your name. So if you've been putting off replacing them drafty windows, or you think your landlord needs to get on that before the winter gets here, let them know about Window Nation. And because y'all cool, I went and got it hooked up for you real nice. Y'all buy 2 windows, you're gonna get 2 free on old Kobe. On top of that, you ain't gotta make no payments for 2 years, no monthly payments, no down payment, no interest until 2027. Plus, installation only takes a day or less, so they in, out, you get back to your day with brand new windows on the crib. Don't miss out. Schedule a fast free estimate now with the pros at Window Nation. Head to windownation.com.
Obviously, I think a lot of us are very preoccupied with what the feds are doing in Chicago, but I do want to make sure we get to some other stories happening around the city. But before we do that, I want to remind you once again that we are in the last day of our fall membership campaign. Remember, I said we need 17 people by the end of the episode to reach our goals, to help sustain this show, to help keep it going. So my hope is that about 6 of you have already signed up by this point in the episode. I'm running the numbers. I'm keeping track. I'm gonna keep you up to the very end here. Look, I think you know the reasons. We are out here watching. We bring guests on like Melody and Justin who are talking to lawyers, talking to those officials who are out on the streets, who are on the ground to help us analyze and process all of the craziness that is happening in Chicago right now. We know those conversations are valuable to you. You're here, you're listening, you're here every single day. That means this show is valuable to you. All we're asking is that you contribute $10 a month or $100 a year. Help keep it free for everybody, help keep it accessible for everybody, and help keep this thing going. Again, you sign up at membership.citycast.fm. And when you do that today, before the end of the episode, you're going to get that Neighbors Make Chicago tote. This is the last time you're going to get it. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. And then you're going to be sad when it's gone. And you're like, but I wanted the tote. You got to do it now. Membership.citycast.fm. And thank you so much to everyone who has already signed up. We are so appreciative. We're so grateful. And I do think we can get to this goal. So let's see how far we get by the next point in the episode. Like I said, I want to move along to some other things that are happening in Chicago this week. Melody, you covered something called the Central Area Plan 2045, which has to do with the future of downtown. What will downtown look like? What's in that plan and kind of where is it? What's going on?
Yes. So amongst all of the other news that's happening in Chicago, there is things moving along like the Central Area Plan. And it's meant to update the previous Central Area Plan that was last updated in 2003. So the Central Area Plan is supposed to serve as a guideline for supporting the central area, which includes downtown, sort of near North Side, West Loop, South Loop area, and how to support it economically, like arts, entertainment, infrastructure. So all of those things. It's supposed to serve as a guideline of what do we want this area to look like in the next 25, 30 years. So this is supposed to, be that until 2045. Long time. So a lot of planning has gone into this. The DPD, Department of Planning and Development, has been hosting a lot of listening sessions over the last 2 years. They've spoken to over 10,000 people, put all of that feedback into this plan. And so, this is just a guideline. Will everything in this plan come to fruition? No. The last Central Area Plan included capping the Kennedy. Do we have capping the Kennedy? We do not. But we do have a lakeshore, beautiful lakeshore path, which was included in the previous Central Area Plan. We have Millennium Park, which was previously included in the Central Area Plan. So I think a lot of great things can come from this. Specifically, this plan is trying to address the population increase that will be happening in that central area.
So like residents specifically.
Residents. I mean, it talks about retail too. So parts of this plan talk about how to implement adaptive reuse to some of the vacant office space to turn it into residential units, because the central area is estimated to have 300,000 residents. And right now it's about a little less than half than that of that. And so that's a huge population boom. And we need somewhere to put all these people. The loop is pretty much built out. We're not really going to get much new build in the area, but there's a lot of vacant office space that's just sitting. So part of this plan kind of looks into, how can we implement things at the city level that will encourage developers to turn this unused office space into, apartments? How can we turn some of the vacant storefronts? We might not get a long-term tenant, but can we put some pop-up spaces in here that might in the long run maybe turn into a long-term tenant down the road for a different space somewhere in the loop?
That's such a funny thing to think about as being in an official report, because it feels like such a trendy
Pop-ups.
concept. Yeah, like the
Yeah, what are pop-ups going to be in 2045?
you know what I'm saying?
Like, it's not a thing anymore. Yeah.
One of the things that was really interesting to me was the floating the idea of an office of nighttime engagement. I think other cities, they have referred to this as like a night mayor. And I know there are some city cast cities where this has happened. Can you explain what this would look like in Chicago, theoretically?
Yeah, when I think of this, I think of Vegas. And, not saying that Chicago's going to turn into Vegas, but previously in another life, I was.
We are getting a casino melody. It's coming.
One step closer, I guess. In another life, I was a reporter in Des Moines, Iowa, and they actually implemented something similar. Their entertainment district, much smaller than Chicago, much smaller than the Loop. But they implemented this because they had, a couple blocks that were really popping at night, and they didn't really know how to handle that. And so they implemented, this idea, similar elements to try to make sure that they could take advantage of some of the nightlife that was happening in the downtown area of Des Moines. And so it's the same concept for Chicago on a larger level. How can they activate the nightlife that a lot of people do come to Chicago for? Tourists, visitors, some residents that will make a day out of going out downtown at night. How can they turn this into more of how can they be more purposeful in using the nightlife to advertise Chicago, make it more enjoyable for people? And so I'm interested to see how this will be implemented.
Or received.
Yeah.
The Night Owls of Chicago would probably tell you that the nightlife scene in the city has declined quite a lot in the past 10 years or so.
5 years.
Yeah, five,
Yeah.
certainly since the pandemic.
Mostly since COVID.
Yeah, certainly since the pandemic. Like right there, and then I also think there has been such a focus on clubs, for example, as sites of gun violence, right? And you've seen a lot of older folks who've really butt heads with owners of bars and clubs in their wards because of crimes or other incidents that have happened there. And so it's interesting to me to then sort of be like, well, let's maybe turn it into a tourism thing, or let's do a work with. I think
There's that kind of nightlife, and the Chicago's had a long sordid history with that kind of nightlife. And when you're talking about nightclubs, at the end of the day, this is also about Chicago's kind of perception and this idea that so many suburban people have this kind of warped perception of Chicago. I don't want to go downtown. It's dark. It's scary. I don't want to do that. And then it's kind of reinforced by stupid stuff like that, where you're walking Wabash for 3 blocks to a parking garage and there's nothing. And that's what you're talking about. To Chicagoans, you're like, get over it, right? That's the Chicago way. We know how to navigate Wabash. But for people who are not here, tourists, suburbanites, that's a scary little walk at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Only because there's just nothing's open. There's no restaurants. There's no foot traffic. There's nothing. So yeah, all of this stuff works in terms of trying to figure out from a central area, plan to fix kind of some of these things. And the other thing, and Melody's done a tremendous amount of work on this, great stuff, is developers. Developers as sort of handshake partners in making new things is great on paper. But developers at the end of the day want to make money. And so they're going to find a way to skirt some of the rules and regulations, like, for instance, affordable housing. They've done this a lot where they've had these carve-outs in these buildings in the West Loop and Fulton Market where they're like, yeah, we got carve-outs. Then you start to see like the carve-outs actually were in a sister project that's at Harrison and Western, they're using different ways to what affordable housing means for them.
Yes.
And so it's changed the fabric of the neighborhood where now you have these shiny, glossy, expensive buildings in the Fulton Market, and they're only for certain people. You want to talk about West Loop, you have the creeping 1901 project, which is the United Center project. That's going to renovate an entire neighborhood. That's the near West Side. That's past the West Loop. And so the question is, where's the border of this plan to redevelop and re-energize? Because some people would call that gentrification as opposed to just straight up revitalization, if that makes sense.
I think this also goes hand in hand with the LaSalle Street Reimagined initiative, which is going to bring over 1,400 apartments to the financial district. And all of those projects are receiving city subsidies to turn vacant office space into apartments. And 30% of that is going to be allocated to affordable So, and all of that is supposed to be coming online between 2026, 2027, possibly 2028, depending on how long these projects take. And the city is creating essentially this new neighborhood within the financial district, and they need a way to support that. And I see elements of the central area, this new central area plan that supports that. Some of that is the nighttime economy office that they're trying to create. I see that in how they're trying to expand the Riverwalk. Like the city is like making this, and now they have to find a way to support it and bring businesses in and keep people happy that are going to be living there. And so I think this is all just very interesting and interconnected in various ways.
Staying on kind of development news, we've got, Justin, you wrote about how the Bears, surprise, surprise, they're looking for some taxpayer money out in Arlington Heights. How much is it?
It's $850 million, I think, is somewhere around there, close to $1 billion. And it's very similar to the ask they had in Chicago. So just a quick backstory on the Chicago Bears are looking to get a new stadium. Chicago tried to keep them here because they bought the land at Arlington Park, and they were going to move to Arlington Heights. They put together this great, we've all seen it, like there's going to be a dome stadium just south of where Soldier Field is now. But that was contingent on whether the state was going to give them money for infrastructure and for helping to build it out. The state was like cold water. Governor Pritzker has got a lot of things he's dealing with.
We're still paying off Soldier Field.
Right. And he's like, no, we're not doing it. So they use that as sort of the perception to say, listen, we're not getting what we need out here, so we're going to go to Arlington Heights. We're going to build on our own. We're not going to ask for any public money to build this stadium. Now, the operative word there is stadium. What the Bears want to do in Arlington Heights, like every other big sports franchise, is to build a village. We're not talking about, we keep saying district. But I would go further. I would say community, town, village. A new report came out that said the Bears are essentially asking for $855 million in infrastructure improvements. That would be to widen and make better ramps off of 53 right there, and also to be able to build out essentially everything you'd need to have a stadium that would attract 100,000 people. But in the actual report and the sort of review of the report, the Bears are going to build on that space hotels, restaurants, retail, and housing. They are talking about building multifamily housing. So I think it's like 1,100 units. And so this is not a play just to be able to get a dome on a stadium. This is a play to say, listen, we're going to be landowner. We're going to own a town.
This is it's like a company town.
Right, it's like Severance.
Yeah,
but football.
But football. Basically 1 for 1. I do think that figure, that I think 855 million, that is a lot bigger. Like, because sometimes we've talked about this with other stadium projects, the Fire, even when we're talking about the 1901 project, which is not quite a stadium redevelopment, but more of this like the sort of village district redevelopment. We've talked about infrastructure asks for those projects, and those figures are a lot lower than $855 million.
You have to understand the scale too. The Bears are in the National Football League. The National Football League is cash, billions cash, and it's probably the number one sport in terms of, and the Bears are number 3 market in the sport. And so it's not surprising they'd have that ask. I think the thing that is a head scratcher is they had that ask in Chicago, and when they couldn't get it, they acted like, well, we're taking our ball and we're going to our spot.
Right, they're still going to have to go to Springfield to argue this. Yeah.
Right. So why not build? Now, the problem at the end of the day is that the Bears don't own the museum campus. They can't build restaurant, retail, and housing. So they can act like the city's spurned them, and they can act like, we tried to stay in Chicago, but they never really were serious if the goal was to build Bearstown. That's not a thing you can build on the museum campus. And so I'm as a diehard Bears fan, I'm a big fan of a new stadium and a dome and getting up to speed with where the NFL is at now. Though I think Soldier Field is the second or the oldest stadium.
And one of the smallest in terms of capacity.
It's great to be in the stadium. It's amazing. I know they get a lot of heat for the renovation back in 2003, but it is a great sporting experience. It's very close to the field. But again, this is not about sports even. It's about, they keep saying it's about attracting the Final Four or big things, but it's really about them being like mega development. That's the word now. It's mega development. So that's what they're doing. A great transition is the Cubs. So the Cubs in Wrigleyville is a great example of they have a landmark stadium, Wrigley Field. There's only so much they can do to renovate that stadium. Every time they try to put a jumbotron or a new scoreboard, there's so many legalities they have to go through. But what the Ricketts family did through their private equity companies and real estate companies is they bought up all the land around Wrigley Field. So when you see Wrigley Field now, where the McDonald's used to be, or the Yum Yum Donuts is Gallagher Way, or
a lot of people miss that Taco Bell.
Right, the Taco, yeah, that's sure, the Taco Bell.
We see the comments. They really miss it.
That's what you see. You see that they have redeveloped essentially a little district, a little Wrigleyville, Rickettsville, that has got 7 or 8 properties around the thing, and they've redone it. And now instead of one of the things I always enjoyed about Wrigley Field is there were auto mechanics all around it. Because it was a neighborhood, and that's what the kind of vibe. Those are gone, replaced by the UFC gym, or replaced by Hotel Zachary, or the Gallagher Way and the office buildings. It's an entirely different look. But again, all that money coming in from the Small Cheval, from the Big Star, from all those places, that's money going into the Ricketts pockets in some way because they're playing landlord. And that is the new way sports is being done. It's not just about the stadium. It's about the experience around the stadium. And Chicago sports franchises are all in that game. You see it in the 78 as well with the Fire and with what the White Sox wanted to do. And next will be when they want to redo the United Center. That'll be the thing. And you're seeing 1901 is all about that. So that's the new game.
I got to say, Justin, if the 78, if 1901 all just turn into versions of the new Wrigleyville, I can't say that's a super exciting prospect for me, to be perfectly frank. I know right, it's all about the money. It's all about bringing people in. I think, but woof.
It's a lot of money, but they do need to improve infrastructure if you're building any stadium, but it's a ton of money.
Yeah. And it's not just a stadium.
I'm going to get one of those houses, man. Live in Bearstown?
No.
I will live in Bearstown. No. I will live in Bearsville.
Oh,
Sounds like my nightmare.
Justin.
The village of Bears.
Da town.
I got a feeling a lot of you out there got some excellent people skills. Maybe you worked in hospitality or customer service, or a job where you've had to listen, anticipate needs, and make somebody feel valued. Now, if that sounds like you, then you know how to put people first. And those are the same skills you need to become a successful realtor. Key part, successful. As a realtor, you wouldn't be starting from scratch. You'd be shifting your talents into a new role, one where you can set your own schedule, build new connections, and maybe even grow your earnings. If it sounds like real estate could be your next career move and you're like, but wait, where do I get started? We got you. Visit realtorsrealestateschool.com today to schedule your free career consultation. That's realtorsrealestateschool.com. What's up, y'all? Jacoby Cochran, senior host of CityCast Chicago. If I had to guess, you already know that, which means from listening to this show, you also know how much I love my city, how much this team rides for Chicago. And honestly, one of the best parts is we love helping you understand the city, feeling more connected to it, because at the end of the day, the only reason this show works is because of you. You're probably somebody who like to shop in their neighborhood whenever possible, right? You're probably somebody who keep their library card on them, who their friends and family come to for their opinion and their thoughts on the stories happening in and around the city. You know how I know this? Because that's me. So if this sounds like you, I'm going to invite you to join CityCast Chicago Neighbors. Our membership program is designed to help people just like you. You're going to get invites to members-only events, our curated weekly roundup of the best things to do in the city, and a chance to share your love for Chicago on our podcast. Plus, your membership directly supports the people making this show every single day so that we can keep bringing you the stories that matter most. Become a CityCast Chicago neighbor for $10 a month or $100 a year at membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm.
Every show, every week with a little bit of good news. Melody, what's your good news for the people this week?
All right. So I'm a Bad Bunny fanatic. So
yes.
When I saw that he was doing the Super Bowl, I was screaming. I was so excited. I've said this on the show many times, but I'm Boricua. I was literally just there early September, and I went to his residency tour
Beautiful.
happening in San Juan, and it was amazing. Oh my God, no words. It was truly just performance of a lifetime. And I'm excited for people to get some of that experience during the Super Bowl. And it'll be interesting to see kind of what songs he decides to choose. It'll be a lot of people's first time probably witnessing Period. And just Google it if you want to know what it is. But I'm very excited to see how people are going to react to this show. It will probably be fully in Spanish, which I don't know if that's going to be a first for the Super Bowl, but Bad Bunny is unapologetically Puerto Rican, speaks Spanish on all of his shows.
Well, isn't he the first solo Latino act?
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see if he has any special guests, because during his residency tour, every show there was a special guest. And so I'm like, all right, who's he going to bring out for the Super Bowl? Is it going to be like an OG reggaeton artist? Or is it going to be someone like from, today's music? I am just so psyched.
I love Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, I don't understand the argument about the MAGA argument. I feel like that's fake, like AI.
People don't understand. He is the #1 streaming artist in the world. In the world. So I think it's natural, people are like, oh, Super Bowl, nationwide stage, biggest stage. Okay, so you're supposed to get the biggest artist, and that's Bad Bunny.
The whole politics of this performance, right? Because obviously it's not like the NFL is any, bastion of
morality or PC.
Yeah, sure, exactly. They had Kendrick Lamar last year, which that performance was, blatantly political. It was fascinating to watch, and obviously just amazing to watch. Bad Bunny has not been touring in the U.S. explicitly because he does not want his fans to be targeted by ICE, safety and also like a protest kind of thing. But the idea that he comes now to an audience where, the argument has sort of been like primarily like the people who come to the Super Bowl are primarily people who can afford to go to the Super Bowl, right?
Right.
The risk is maybe a little bit lower than would be at a typical Bad Bunny show. And so fascinating stuff.
I'm going to watch from home, so.
Yes! I'm so excited about this, Melody. I'm glad you brought this up. Justin, what's your good news today?
Well, this is a blatant self-promotion, but
that's what we're here for.
I've been in a Chicago sketch comedy group for 25 years, and we're having our anniversary. Schadenfreude, which has done a lot of political sketch comedy local. We were making fun of Mayor Daley back in the day. It's so funny to think about. But
that's wild.
When you're at Richard M's at the height of his career, and we're doing little songs in Rogers Park parodying his. Now I'm like, well, that was mistimed. I feel like now is the time when political comedy is like surging.
You got to do a review,
exactly. Yeah. So we're doing a 25th anniversary show at the Hideout on October 17th, and it's fun because most of the group is spread out in New York and LA and all over the place now. So they're all coming back in, and it's going to be great. We're doing like a sort of fun version of a staged reading. We wrote a screenplay called Alderman in 2006 that got a lot of traction. We got signed by Ari Emanuel's team and everything. Dropped as well, so I got to put that in there. Signed and dropped.
So hey, the cycle continues. Yeah.
But we're gonna do a stage reading of that, which is really fun. This 2005, 2006 references are really fun.
That is wild. I love that, and I hope folks go check it out. I think that's so fun, and obviously, what's more Chicago than your friend in a sketch comedy show?
A lot of good local bits from 2005.
Absolutely. My good news, I'm going to close this out, is, y'all, I got a lot of new neighbors to thank. We have had so many new neighbors joining over during our fall membership campaign. So I want to thank Ann S., Claire E., Cindy B., Jen C., James B., Richard W., Emma D., Roxanne H., and Maiko H. That is just a smattering of the people I need to thank in this episode. I've got more thank yous coming, but we've just been so grateful for all the new neighbors who have joined during this membership campaign and who have said such kind words and who have offered their support. Again, you can join them. I'm going to say it again, membership.citycast.fm. But it's been such a pleasure to welcome all these new people to the neighborhood. I want to give a huge thank you to our guests today, Melody Mercado from Block Club Chicago. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And Justin Kaufman of Axios Chicago. Thanks.
You guys can stay at my condo in Beartown whenever you want.
Oh, boy. I want to thank the people who make CityCast Chicago. Our regular host is Jacoby Cochran. Our producer is Michelle Navarro. Our newsletter editor is Emmy Mack. Our social media manager is Rick Helmuth. Our roving producer this week was Selena C.A. Reynolds. Our music is by Sam Thousand, All the Kimonos, and Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop. Additional music this week from Mo Life and Taryn Ector, courtesy of Epidemic Sound, and Steve Cullum via Getty. Also, I said I had more new CityCast Chicago neighbors to thank, and I do, thanks to Imani B., Catherine E., Joanna B., Viviana B., Abraham B., Minhee Cho, Billy L., Kate T., Jenna D., Lauren S., Taryn A., and Kaylee P. Wow. You all joined during this membership campaign at membership.citycast.fm, and we are so grateful for your support. I also told y'all I was going to keep running the numbers. So if you got to this point in the episode and you still haven't signed up, we only need 5 more people. Just 5. If you're one of them, you're going to get that great Neighbors Make Chicago tote to show off your support. But you can only do it if you join now, and I really mean right now, before this episode ends, at membership.citycast.fm. Thanks so much for everything, for everyone who's become a neighbor, but also, of course, for being here, for listening. You're going to hear Jacoby again on Monday. We'll talk to you then.